The mother of Hermes was Maia, a nymph who gave birth to him in a cave. As soon as he was born, his father, who was Zeus, king of the gods, gave him a pair of winged sandals that enabled him to fly. The baby god was just a day old when he first flew out of the cave and began to explore the world. As he was flying around, a plodding and wrinkly-faced creature caught his eye. This was the tortoise, who carried her shell around on her back. As soon as Hermes saw the shell, he understood how it could be useful to him, and he wanted it. So he landed in the tortoise's path and declared, "Hello, my pretty one. How are you today?" No one had ever spoken to the tortoise like this before, let alone a baby with winged sandals. She should have suspected a trick, and perhaps she did. But Hermes' flattery worked its charm on her. She smiled her prettiest of smiles, which wasn't that pretty, unless you happened to be another tortoise. The infant smiled back and said, "I'd love to see you dance, and I bet your singing voice is as beautiful as your face." "Now you're going too far," laughed the tortoise. "I'm far too shy to dance, and as for singing, I've never even tried. I leave that sort of thing to the birds and the grasshoppers, who have a more artistic nature." "But I tell you that you have the most beautiful voice of all," declared the baby Hermes. "You can take me at my word. I'm a god, and we immortals never lie," he insisted. And if you know anything about mythology, you will realize that this was far from true. The gods almost always lie, even when there's no need. They do it just for practice. And so, with this insincerity and flattery, the baby god won the trust of the tortoise, who was old enough to know better. But all he really wanted to do was to steal her beautiful shell. When she was looking the other way, he grabbed it off her back and flew off with it, leaving the poor tortoise behind, shellless and homeless. And the moral of this part of the story, in case you haven't understood it yet, is this: never talk to strangers. The shell had made a snug house for the tortoise, but Hermes had a different idea for it. Before he could make his invention, he needed something else, the horns of a bull. So he began to think about some more mischief that he could play. He knew, because the gods know everything, even baby gods, that no thief should ever dream of stealing the cattle of the sun. The cattle of the sun were the blessed cattle of the immortals, guarded by the sun god Apollo, and anyone who stole them could be thrown down into the deepest, darkest depths of Tartarus, a punishment far worse than death. So since it was totally forbidden to steal the cattle of the sun, Hermes wanted to do it. He was that sort of baby. The temptation was too great, and so he flew directly to the mountain where Apollo kept the holy cattle. He found them grazing the sweet grass of a slope overlooking the sea. The baby god chose 50 of the best cattle and started to drive them away, only he did this in a cunning fashion. He made the cattle walk backwards. That way any person or god who found the tracks would think they showed the cattle moving in the opposite direction. Flying around the cattle like a gadfly, he drove them down the slope. Now it happened they passed an old man tending to his vineyard. In all his many years, the man had never seen a baby cowherder driving cattle backwards. Hermes saw the look of astonishment on his face and called out, "Old man, if you want a fine crop of grapes and barrels overflowing with wine, be sure to tell no mortal, and especially no immortal person, what you have seen today." On and on he drove the cattle, first along the beach and then onto an old farm and into an empty cowshed. That evening, as Apollo rested his shining head beneath the horizon, Hermes went out to gather dry sticks for cooking fire, after he had made a sacrifice to his father Zeus, and he himself had tasted the roast meat of the gods. He set about fashioning the first ever lyre. The horns of the bull made the frame of the lyre, and the tortoise shell became the sound box to amplify the music. He added a crossbar of olive wood, and then he pulled 7 gut strings over it. The sweet notes of the new musical instrument rang out at the touch of his hand, and he said to himself, "I wasn't lying when I said to the tortoise that she could sing sweeter than any bird." He was so pleased with his invention that he composed a song in honor of his mother Maia, the one whom he truly loved. And this was how the baby Hermes invented the musical instrument known as the lyre. The next day Hermes flew off, taking his precious instrument with him. He played as he flew, and the birds were envious of his musical skill. He returned to his mother's cave, where he fell happily asleep. But this is not the end of the story. Oh no! As you know, it is not Hermes whom we associate with the lyre. It is the sun god Apollo. It was Apollo's job as the official sun god to drive the sun chariot across the sky. On his way he looked down on the cattle of the sun and thought, "That's funny. Some of them seem to be missing." He counted the cattle 2 or 3 times to be sure, and each time he came up with a number that was 50 short. That was when the sky went dark, because Apollo immediately aborted his daily mission and set off in search of the missing cattle.
"Cattle in the world were drop dead! I didn't steal your cows!"
Apollo made his move and would have seized the thieving, screaming child, crib and all, if Hermes had not acted just in the nick of time. He began to play his lyre so sweetly and so magically that the sun god stopped in his tracks, amazed at the sound of the music. "It's called music," replied Hermes, "and if you like, I can give this gift to you." He would not have made such a generous offer except to save himself from being cast into deepest, darkest Tartarus. Hermes held out the lyre, and bright Apollo took it and willingly gave him a gift in exchange. He handed him a magic wand, a stick entwined with 2 carved wooden snakes. This stick became one of Hermes's most precious possessions, alongside his broad hat and his wooden sandals. When he grew up to be the messenger of the gods, he always took it with him, and the snake wand became the ancient symbol of messengers. As for Apollo, he loved his lyre made from a tortoise shell and a bull's horns. He's often shown making the music of the gods.
Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to see the latest videos. Thank you.